Welcome back to the show. Today I'm with Owen Sammarone. Owen Sammarone has done a lot from semi-coach the UConn to a championship as a student manager. He has also helped many authors finish and write their books. He is a LinkedIn guru. He knows how to grow LinkedIn and help other people grow on LinkedIn. He is soon to be an author. Has come out with many courses as well. He's just an overall great speaker, great man, and an incredible person to learn from. And we're excited to dive into his story today. Go ahead and introduce yourself how you would like to be introduced.
For sure, man. Well, thanks for having me on the show. Excited for this. I'm essentially just a online entrepreneur, voracious reader, lifelong learner. As you can see the books behind us for those that are watching. Big fan of nonfiction books, and I've been building some marketing agencies, I guess you can say, with authors on the book marketing front. LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn ghostwriting agency, and then we've done some coaching as well. But nonetheless, just a guy who likes to create, likes to read, likes to learn from smart people, and hopefully pass that to those that will listen to me.
The thing I always think of when I think about you is the fact that you've read over 300 books, and they're almost all in the self-help, personal development, nonfiction category. Mm-hmm. We were talking off camera before this started how it begins to get repetitive, and you no longer even read books start to finish. Why is that, and what have you learned in the books?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's I guess I'll start with saying whenever people ask for a book recommendation, I tell them to go back to the earlier texts, like books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, that came out in 1900, 1920. Because unfortunately, a lot of the books today are built on in a good way, they're built on the backs of those or the shoulders, but they could be very repetitive, and the authors could coin the terms off as their own. So when you read a lot of the same self-help books, around the last, 5-10 years, they could be repetitive. And I was telling you this before too, when we were recording, obviously you read books for golden nuggets. And I would read these books and 100 pages go by, 150 pages go by, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting some value, but I'm looking for this golden nugget. I feel like it still has to come. And I would get to the end of the book, 300 pages, and it just never came. And I was like, okay, I kind of wasted my time. Obviously, I'm spending my time doing something valuable. I could be doing something way worse. And that kind of got me to the point of having more intention behind what I was doing. And that really was something that I think just was something I did for all my life, every aspect of my life. How can I just have more intention behind what I was doing? And that led to just not wanting to read a book from cover to cover, having more intention, reading the table of contents, actually looking into the book and thinking, what do I want to learn from this? Why did I pick up this book? Maybe it was for literally one specific topic. And more times than not, that's within one chapter. And it's oh, I'm just going to read that chapter. Start right there. So that's definitely been an aspect of transitioning to that point. It's not to say you shouldn't, I think, read books from cover to cover. I was even telling you too, biography books, you obviously want to read cover to cover. That's someone's life story. And I think biography books are one of the best genres of books that you could read, because you can literally get someone's full life in 300 pages. It's pretty impressive, and it's $14, or as the good old Goodwill Hunting line, you can get it $3 in late fees. So it's just such a great way to find information. But when you're probably reading at the frequency I am, or you're very intentional about what you want to learn, going to the book in a different way from what I've kind of mentioned is a smart play. And then you can get what you're looking for and go ultimately apply it, because that's why we read books. I mean, it's funny to say, but I've gone into a rhythm in the past where you might just want to read because you want to read. And it's almost like doom scrolling in a positive sense, but it's still a similar concept. And it's why am I doing this? Why am I reading in the first place? To obviously better my life and go put it into action. So you have to catch yourself sometimes when you do read at that frequency. And I think changing that approach through the table of contents approach has helped me.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because my goal this year was to read one book every month. And I was behind my goal a couple of weeks ago, so I've just been going crazy reading. And as I've been crazy reading, I'm loving it. And I'm next year I want to do 2 a month. But now as you say this, I'm kind of rethinking it, because I'm dude, am I just going to read 2 books so that I can say I read 2 books a month? And that reminds me that a lot of people are starting this narrative, or I guess you hear it in the self-help world a lot too, which is it's better to read the same book 3 times than read 3 different books. I don't know how I feel about. How do you feel about that statement? Do you think that's true or no?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I think the initial answer is it depends on where you are in your life. Like, how old are you or what you're doing for work. So I, 18 to maybe 25 or even 30, like, I think you should consume as much information as you possibly can. Like, you're in this like growth phase, and depending on what you were doing before 18 or even during those years, like for me, I was not a reader growing up. Like, that's part of my story. Like, was ADD, ADHD, like could not do a reading comprehension for the life of me. And now I get paid to read books. So it's just crazy how life can flip on its head like that. But I felt like at 18, when I started to develop this love for personal development, I was like, dude, I got to catch up. Like, there's kids that probably have read so much more than me. I need to read more books. So I think there's a period of your life that you got to find out if you're in that growth phase. And that age window, I said, like, that could be adjusted. Like, you could be 40 and just start figuring out, oh my gosh, I've been wasting my last first chapter of my life or something. I need to go change this. So I think there's knowing that, but I've graduated into that point, as you kind of mentioned, of like reading the books that have had the most impact on me over and over again. I mean, think about like watching a movie or like a TV show. Like, we don't retain all the information right away. And we watch our favorite movies over and over again, and we still find new little insights about it or scenes that we didn't capture on the first time around. Reading a book is like a way harder practice to acquire information because you're having to sit still, and most people can't, that's a tough action for all of us, even for someone like myself who reads a lot. So I think there's a level of you need to grow your retention, with reading books over and over again. And a lot of these books that you do read, some of them are obviously worth reading over and over again, and you'll be able to get new insights. So I think it depends on where you are in that season, but I actually have a goal myself to read 30 books this year, and most of them are going to be reread, books that I've already read in the past. And if you're like me too, I write in my books a lot. There's a lot of like pen markings. So it's interesting to like notice those when you're reading it 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, to see like what you were thinking and who you were in that first time you were reading the book, to see where you are now, to see how you've evolved. So I think that's interesting too. But yeah.
Well, on that topic, that is something I've thought about is retention.
Yeah.
Now, the obvious answer is you could read the book once, twice, 3 times, but I mean, you mentioned writing in it. So, something I have done, I don't do it with a lot of books, is I'll create like a Notion page, and then as I read it, I'll take notes on it. But what are some strategies you've come to find for retaining that aren't just reading it over and over again?
I'm glad you brought that up, because the only way to retain a book is not that you have to read it again.
Right.
Like, you totally could read it once and just take good notes and then refer back to those notes. So for me, I've actually struggled with this process too. I think because once you finish a book, you're like, I either want to take action on what I learned, or you want to go read the next book. And it's like, well, I need to like dissect this book more and like absorb everything that this person just told me, because it's their life's work essentially, or they've done a lot of research. So one thing I do is I try to transfer those notes in the book to pen and paper. And I like to like bracket sentences or put like a little arrow if there's a whole paragraph that I'm interested in. And I'll essentially like rewrite all that on paper. And then from there, I will try to transfer it to a Google Doc as well. So I have like a Google Drive of like just all these book notes that I can go back to. But I know there's a lot of research and history behind the practice of pen and paper over digital writing. So I think that's a really helpful practice to retain. But another good strategy that I tell people is to increase your memory retention, and you could adjust how many pages this is, but like you can go from anywhere from reading 1 page to the whole chapter to then writing down what you think you learned, and without looking back. So like read 5 pages and get a pen and paper and be like, what the heck did I actually just read? And try to write out what that is, and then go back and see if you're right. And it could be incredible how we can read 10 pages and be like, I don't know what the heck I just read. Like, totally forget. So that's a way to like increase your memory retention as a practical
what
tip.
You just said is one of the most important skills, because that's going to improve your first time reading, even no note-taking comprehension, which is the most ideal
Right.
thing to be working on. I do solo podcasts. Part of the reason I do solo podcasts is because of the listening habits for people who listen to podcasts. Is there's conversationalists and there's podcasters. So a conversationalist, I don't know why this example always comes to my head because I do not listen to this podcast, but Call Her Daddy, it's like the girl sexual podcast, and like the fans aren't, if she interviews someone cool, they'll care, but they just like what she talks about in her, so they show up for her to talk about whatever, and even if she does solo podcasts, they'll be there.
Right.
Same with like Emma Chamberlain and these kind of YouTubers people are fans of them. And then you have people like Diary of a CEO, whose book's up there, where he's such a massive podcast, millions and millions of listeners, but you don't know that much about him. You really, it's one of my favorite podcasts, and I only listen if I'm interested in the guest. Mm-hmm. So it's like you go down, you look for the guest. Now, someone like Joe Rogan kind of falls in between because I personally only listen based on the guest, but he has people who are fans of him who just listen to everything he does.
Right.
So it's like I thought about that concept a lot when I started my podcast, and I would force myself to do solo episodes, one, because I wanted to be a better speaker without anyone helping me, but then I also thought that solo episodes are where people can become a fan of me, because I didn't have fear factor like Joe Rogan or whatever people come from.
Right.
But I noticed that as I did so many solo podcasts that I kind of just started just forcing information out. Like I'll probably 1 out of every 4 solo podcasts, I'll be like, okay, that's a really good topic that I think I can teach people about. And then 3 out of every 4 is just like, let me just go show up, because that's what, keep showing up. And so like the format I'm thinking about for 2025 is funny because I want to keep the solo podcast going for what I just explained to you, but I also want to up my comprehension. So what the 2 book a month format is, what I actually wanted to do was pick a skill I want to learn. So let's say in January I want to learn about being a better speaker. Read 2 books on being a better speaker. Maybe one's on verbal and one's on body communication. And then at the end of the month, I have to film a solo podcast on the contents of those books. And therefore, by forcing myself to teach the contents of the books at the end of the month, I'll retain it better. And that's kind of the format I'm thinking about for 2025. But I don't know. But it's solely for the purpose of retaining the book knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, I think they say like the best way to learn is to teach, because you learn it twice. And if you could be able to teach something to like a 7-year-old, then you truly understand it well.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of us do not understand most things going on. Like it's funny if you really think about how to explain this, and most people will just be like, well, that's the way it is, or that's how it has always been. It's like, well, that's not going to help anyone learn whatever you're trying to share. But I think for you to set that deadline or set that goal of like, you got to go release a YouTube video or solo podcast to then convey what you've learned is going to help you actually read the book. It's going to give you that motivation to actually finish it because you have that end goal. And then it's going to help you understand the material way more, because you're going to have to be able to share it with others.
That was actually, you just remind me of something I used to do. I stopped doing this, but it was such a good practice, is when I learned something I liked in a book, I would try to call a friend and explain it to him. That was another comprehension thing I did. But I just stopped, because it's like I have like 3 or 4 friends and I'm just calling them like, yo, let me tell you about this. And they're like, why are you calling me up? Although the right people like learning. I did want to ask you though, with your story, you said you didn't read growing up. I also did not read growing up, but how did you become someone who likes reading? Because I was absolutely convinced I hated it. And then for me, it was a kid who I also knew hated reading, and he read Think and Grow Rich and he gave it to me. And I was like, okay, if this guy read it and he's recommending it to me and I know he doesn't read, then it can't be that bad. And I made a deal with myself. I was like, I'm going to read 10 pages a day no matter what. And then it was so easy to read because I loved it. And so I've read since. But what turned you from like ADD, ADHD to 300 books?
Yeah, 100%. I think the short answer on that is the purpose and intention behind what I was learning. I think when you're going through school and you're learning about Mesopotamia and the Persian Empire and whatnot, like it has no applicable value to my life. Like, I'm not going to ever need that information. So you zone out and you have no interest in it. Obviously, there's history buffs who probably love it, and then they become social studies teachers
Yeah.
or whatnot. But for me, I loved being social. I've always been a pretty strong extrovert, most of the time confident in new environments. So I wanted to lean into more of that. And it was actually my basketball experience that got me hooked. So it was really truly finding the purpose and of why I was reading and what I was learning. And for me, it was watching Coach Dan Hurley, who was a coach of mine for 6 years in college basketball, who's now two-time national champion, which is pretty amazing accolade. And I was just a sponge. That's the best way to put it. Like, I was 18 years old, pretty lost, not sure where my direction was, and he was talking about Tim Ferriss and Lewis Howes podcasts, and I'd never heard about those guys. I would start to listen to those. He would ask me to print out a blog or an article from some site. I would print out 2 copies, give him 1 copy, and keep 1 for myself. I would go into his office. I'd see Ryan Holiday, Tim Ferriss, again, a lot of these well-known authors' books on his table, his coffee table, and I would take a picture on my phone and then go to the Barnes & Noble on campus or Amazon and go buy those and go read them. So he was a massive role model for me, I think, growing up through college. But it was really this idea of like, okay, I know I want to be successful. What do successful people do? Coach is becoming successful on his own, and I'm watching that firsthand. He is all about his crap. He gets his stuff done. He lives this life of excellence. He's reading books. He's listening to podcasts. He's the seeker of knowledge. So I just wanted to embody all that. And then I would think like, okay, why is this so interesting to me now? And it wasn't in high school, because high school I had a 2.8 GPA, which for those listening, like from my school, that's like really bad. Like kids had like 4 6s, like beyond 4.0, which I didn't even know that was possible. I thought I capped at 4.0. So I have a 2.8. I'm like barely getting into college. Like URI was such a moment, I think, that God pushed me through. Like I probably shouldn't have got accepted. Like got accepted though, and that was so amazing, and it was such a pivotal 4 years for me. But then I graduated URI with a 3.65 honors student, and was essentially a student athlete. I mean, no jersey, but was traveling around the nation. And it was like, how the heck do you do all that? And I think it comes down to purpose, focus, and intention. So, I mean, we can go on a tangent about what I think ADD and ADHD is, but I think for me and how a lot of other people could combat all that is truly just finding what lights you up and what's your purpose or your why of why you want to learn. Like, it's not so much like, I love picking up a book and reading it. Like the act of reading, I don't think you could say is a massive passion of mine. I think I'm a knowledge seeker. And it's like, how can I get information from someone who has spent decades to learn it, for me to learn it in 10 minutes? For me, that's like a gem. Like, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that? That's definitely has been a bit of the transition.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I remember before I started reading, I used to always hear the quote, I'm sure you heard it a million times too, if you don't like reading, you just haven't had the right book yet. And that quote did nothing for me. Like, I didn't make me want to read. People would always tell me to read. I never wanted to. And yeah, ironic for me, the person who recommended to me a book, he didn't read either, so I was like seeing it through him. But as I was going on YouTube, I believe you kind of attract what you put out, so I started creating, and then I was surrounded by creators, and then I got a job that was a little bit out of my league at the time, and the more I was just around people I liked, who I wanted to be like, and I saw that they were reading, I just started reading. It wasn't like an aha moment, but yeah, it's cool to hear you explain that. I think you should tell them how you ended up with that gig for UConn, because that's a cool story and probably will give some more context to your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, and I mean, for those listening, like, we met through an author event, through a book event, a book that has just changed so many people's lives. And we could talk about that book in particular, because that story was big for me too. But so I got to URI, University of Rhode Island. I'm a Jersey kid, 4 hours away from home. Nice enough that it was far enough away where I felt like I was on my own, but also like close enough where I can head back home. And typical homesick, I think, emotions were flowing through me. So I was like, all right, I can either, party my butt off and play video games like a lot of these kids are doing, which, whatever, be an 18-year-old freshman, like, that's not totally bad. You can have fun still. but I knew I needed like direction. I knew I needed something I can like latch onto that can help me. And I've always loved sports. Always loved basketball in particular. And I was leaving like a math class one day, like math 110, math for business or something. And I went down to the Ryan Center, which was the arena is the arena that the basketball team plays at. And I literally like scoped out the whole place, like 3 stories. Like, I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it's real, but it's funny. Like I took a bathroom break in the presidential suite on the 3rd deck. So like I literally just like checked out the whole place. Now looking back, it was clearly an off day because no one was there. Like no security, no nothing. And it's cool. The arena also has windows that sees the football stadium. So for an 18-year-old kid, like coming from a small town in Jersey, I was like, this is so cool. I'm in this like NBA-sized arena. I'm looking at this football field. Like I was just scoping out the whole place. And then I finally go down to the base level, and I literally like, it was out of a movie, like the one door with the light on. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like I was just looking to talk to someone because I just wanted to get involved in something. It wasn't even like, had to be men's basketball. It was like, I just got to get involved because like I need to be around this environment. I knew that for sure. And there was no one at the desk, but there was a literal like diner bell. And I just rang the diner bell, like that's sitting on this woman's counter. And this girl like pops out from behind, like all startled, which again, like I think it was an off day. She was probably waiting to go home or something. And I was like, hey, I'm a freshman here, 18 years old. Like I need to get involved in something, maybe the sports teams. I don't know. Like I love sports. Like, can you direct me? And that led to, which honestly, this woman, I don't remember her, but she really like took my life trajectory and pointed me in the right direction. She was like, you should talk to the director of basketball operations for the men's team. And I was like, perfect. That sounds great. Let's do it. And that led to a quick email exchange to a very informal interview. I still remember it. It was like such a joke because like basketball is not corporate. It's nothing like you're probably thinking really. And it was a short conversation. The director of ops was like, all right, man, like come to practice tomorrow. See if it's something you want to do. They gave me a chair outside the hardwood, and like I watched practice, and I was like, I don't want to be watching this. Like I'm ready to go. Like throw me into practice right away. Like I didn't need to be warmed up. And the next day, I was like history. You know, I just dedicated every minute after that to the team. I was volunteer, unpaid. There's probably a group of like 10 of us. I got real close with the senior. There were a couple seniors, and I was a freshman. They guided me, and it was it was not the best season in terms of like performance, but we did upset Nebraska, who was ranked, and we stormed the court. So as a freshman, like in a little, you know, Rhode Island's like the smallest state in the nation. So like just to have that whole experience in the first like 3 months of college, I was like, all right, I found it. I found my mark. Like this is where I'm going to spend a lot of my time, and you know, I've given them a lot of hours after that moment.
Yeah. And so how did it go from Rhode Island to UConn?
Yeah, so then we had a lot of success. I became a very trusted manager on the team. I would travel with the team all over the nation. Like literally, it was my job to get the jerseys to wherever we were going. Like I could very well screw up the team in many different ways. I did a lot of food shopping and whatnot. I was, I was held with a lot of responsibility. And then my junior year, we won our conference for the first time in like 20 years. So it was a really big deal. We had like a 25-win season. It was amazing. And then then we went to March Madness, and we almost made it to the Sweet 16. We went out to Sacramento. They literally sent us to the farthest possible destination. So Rhode Island all the way to Sacramento, and we lost in the second game. And then my senior year, success came again. We won like 16 games in a row. We were like the thing on campus. Like our crap didn't stink. And then we made it to the March Madness tournament again. We didn't win the conference, but we won like the regular season, so we still had a lot of success there. And then we lost to Duke in the round of 32, which was pretty tough. But they had like 4 NBA players, so it was really, not really looking good. And then Coach got the UConn job, so he was obviously like the guy. He was crazy. Like he went from, I think it was either a 5-win or 8-win program that he took over for Rhode Island and turned into a 25-win program and multiple championships. He won Coach of the Year. UConn fired their coach, and then Coach got that job.
So Dan Hurley started at Rhode Island.
Yeah, well, he started. Yeah, he's coached elsewhere.
Yeah, but you
high
were
school,
there.
and then Wagner, which is a small school in Staten Island, I think, or Long Island. And then he got URI was like his next big step, and then UConn's obviously like pretty top tier. So coach got the job in like March, I think, or April, but I still had to finish school. I was a senior and I was like freaking out. I was like, coach was nowhere to be found. Like he had already left and went to Connecticut, and he brought a couple of the staff members with him who I was really close with. And I was like, you guys got to take me, like, please, like I need to continue this. This is the path I want to be on. And it's funny, like I always joke about this, but like I would see coach all the time. Like we're talking right now, but to have a sit down with him one-on-one was impossible, like the hardest thing ever. But I finally had it happen towards the end of his time at Rhode Island, and it was a moment for me to express, like, coach, like this is what I want to do. I want to kind of rise up, like I want to still learn under you. So that was like really big for me to get that into his ear, to know where I was at. And fortunately he like kind of knew, or he agreed with it. He saw me through that path. So anyway, they go to UConn, and I'm still finishing school, and they told me I have the job, but I have to get into school. I have to get into the business school for UConn, which again, like high school Owen was like, dude, I'm not going to get into a graduate program. Like that's nuts. But thankfully I did so well at URI and I really hit the books. So I gave myself a winning shot. And fortunately, again, I mean, I think it's a divine, and it's a God moving through the plans, and got into UConn Business School. And I started in June, like right after I graduated, and I did 2 years there. And then it was time to move on after that.
That's a great story, dude. We should, wait, do you have the ring box? You should open the ring box so they can see.
We got 2 rings here. Oh, this, yeah.
Yeah, grab the cool one.
They're both very cool, but this one's definitely a little over the top.
You can show that camera because it's close. Yeah.
Let's see.
That's Owen's ring from UConn. Bro, UConn too beat us in the national championship because I went to SDSU, so that was a couple of years ago. Wow, dude, that's really cool.
Yeah, super special. The rings are obviously a great reminder. I just moved to this new apartment, so I don't have it hung up yet, but I have that nice framed jersey, which just to look at, I'll probably put it right there actually, is behind us.
Dude, that's such a good story. And it honestly, so many stories within that story lead to the book that we met, which is called, I can see it over there, it's called The Third Door. And the concept of the third door is that everything in life is like a nightclub. I actually don't like introducing it that way, because when I tell people that, they hear the first line and it's so off of the normal self-help development line, but it works. But the concept of the third door is everything is like a nightclub. There's the first line, which goes around the block and everyone waits to get in. And there's a second door where if you're the son of a celebrity or you're rich, you just get to go into the club. And there's a third door, which people don't know about. That's where your friend shines a laser pointer in the bouncer's eyes and you dive through the kitchen window and sneak in through the back of the club.
Yep.
And basically the concept of the book, it's about this kid where he wants to write about all these famous people and how they got their start in whatever career they're in. Warren Buffett in investing, Steven Spielberg in film, et cetera, et cetera. And the book's supposed to be about them, but it ends up being about him because he has no authority or credibility to get these interviews. But by taking the third door, he finesses his way into all these world-class interviews. And so dude, that conference must have been 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think 4.
Yeah, and that, dude, the amount of crazy things that has happened in my life since that conference. I mean, I was just on Beast Games, the Amazon Prime show. I did El Camino de Santiago, the walk across Spain. Red Bull, Can You Make It? From Barcelona to Berlin, no phone, no money. 2 or 3 years into all, very strongly built on the concept of the third door. And it's funny because you probably didn't even know that concept when you walked through the arena, but it is kind of what happened, because essentially you're applying for a role that doesn't exist.
Right.
Like you just walk in the office, you're like, I would love to help the basketball team. And there was even one point in my life where this social media marketing agency hung up a bunch of flyers at my campus, SDSU, and they were trying to get someone young to come teach them about social media and TikTok. And I can't remember what the flyer said, like, do you know how to make something go viral? And I didn't. I guess I don't think I've made that many things go viral. But they put these flyers all over San Diego and all over this college campus, and which is kind of bad marketing on their end because no one my age really reacts to flyers. But I walked in the office and no one else walked in the office. And they were like, yeah, have an interview, sit down. And then I worked at that company for 2 years. But so it's cool. It's cool to hear all these third door stories. What are some times in your life other than that where that kind of third door thinking has come into play?
Yeah, the third door, like you said, I think it was a mentality I already had before knowing about it. It was just like, there's no such thing as closed doors. Like, there's a way in, one way or another. And I love the third door concept where it's like, yeah, up the fire escape, through the kitchen window, whatever, find your way in. So for me, you're right. Like, the Ryan Center whole experience and getting the basketball gig was 100% that. Like, nothing was posted. I didn't even really know the manager thing was a thing. I mean, now that if you watch college basketball, now that I'm going to talk about it, look behind the bench and see those like young kids in polos. Those are the managers. And Jay Billis, who's a former Duke All-Star, he's an announcer now. He says they're the hardest working guys in showbiz. And that's like, obviously, so I think it's so true because I've been through it, but it's the most like unglamorous position that gets no praise, but man, you put the time in. So so I think getting that gig was 100% the third door. But even before that, I was like embodying this. So I wanted to work for the Knicks. Coming from New Jersey, I wanted to work for the New York Knicks, being a basketball guy. I cold emailed the VP of PR for the Knicks and got on the phone with him. Didn't get the job. There was no job, I guess, or maybe I was just too young. I was 18 years old. And developed a relationship with him, though. And then he provided me with this thing called the Blue Book, which is essentially all media contacts in the NBA, from ESPN to Complex to anyone, any radio.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just this like Bible of media contacts. If you're in the PR industry, like you want to know, obviously, who reports for who's this affiliate, so you can get some stories out. And that was like a gold mine for me. I was like, all right, I didn't get the job, but like I got this Blue Book. Like, this is so sweet. So that was a great moment. Another project, which I tell anyone really, if you want to get in touch with anybody, say it's an informal or informational interview. Like, anyone's willing to just take that, even if you say it for school. Like, you can have a little white lie. But I actually had that as a project in college. Go find somebody that you want to essentially have their position one day and conduct an informational interview. So I was like, okay, let's think about this. I like marketing. I think that's cool. I'm in Rhode Island. What's the nearest team? Oh, the Boston Red Sox, not too far away. So I get in contact with the CMO of the Boston Red Sox. Get him on the phone, do the whole interview. And it's just like those little moments where it's like most people, I would say like 95% of people, and I've said this to people too, and I say this to clients, and I also say it to like friends, like, oh, you want to be on this person's podcast? Like, have you DM'd them? Have you emailed them? And they're like, no, they'll just say no. I'm like, dude, what? That's like the best thing. Like, that's the worst that's going to happen. They're going to say no, or they're not going to answer you. But what's the best thing that's going to happen? You're going to get on this freaking guy's podcast. That's huge. And so many people I think are so either afraid of failure or rejection that they won't take that shot. But I can say like right here, and I know Ozzy, you live this, like those moments you do take that jump, whether it says yes or no, like you get some great outcome from it. And I think the universe works in that way. So yeah, VP of PR with the Knicks, CMO of Red Sox, like just getting in touch with these people. I mean, I can wholeheartedly call Alex Benayan, the author of The Third Door, as a best friend or great friend, someone I could call at any moment. As I was reading The Third Door, you obviously learn about a mysterious guy named Elliot Bisnow. And I'm like, I got to meet this guy now. I have a whole story with Elliot. He's become a great friend. You know, just people that like, it's just incredible. You can read a book in little Rhode Island and think you're a nobody. And not saying I'm somebody, but you're just, have no authority and no power, to now being friends with people that you've read about and like buddies with all these authors. So
it really helps too because when you do kind of close whatever goal you have and you meet this person who you look up to, it just makes you believe that life or that job or whatever you want is so much more attainable. And there's this guy, Ben Nemtin. I don't know if you've heard of him, but The
Buried Life.
Yeah, he organized something called The Buried Life, which was a show on MTV where these four guys crossed off 100 things on their bucket list. And it was a big inspiration for YouTube channels like Yes Theory and all these great TED Talks and incredible creators. And in his TED Talk, Ben Nemtin's TED Talk, he said something that like really shifted my perspective. And he said, I'm not going to quote it perfectly, but it was something along the lines of like dream jobs are the least competitive because nobody goes for them. Mm-hmm. I do think that statement is a little outdated because I think that when he made the statement, social media was less of a thing. And because social media was less of a thing, you didn't have these gurus telling everyone that they could accomplish their dreams. So when he said it, it was really, really true. Now I think that it's still true. I think that it depends. Like in the world of YouTube, you have everyone and their mom trying to be a YouTuber and everyone and their dad trying to start a podcast, which are kind of the worlds I'm in. So I wouldn't ever go tell someone like if your dream is being a YouTuber, that's not competitive. But
right.
when it comes to the little things like for example, I think it's even more applicable to the actions. Like the action of, oh, I'm gonna walk into this giant arena and see if I can get a gig for the basketball team. Now, when you see that kid on TV, he worked really hard and he has an incredible role. But if we were to survey how many people apply for that position, it's probably not a lot, because in your case, it was straight up a made up position. It was like, oh, where can I insert myself? Mm-hmm. And I've had friends, this girl Serafina comes to mind, who when David Meltzer, who's another guru, was speaking at SDSU, she just asked, like, can I walk with you to, she emailed him and said, can I walk with you from your speech at SDSU to your car? And she walked with him, and she happened to mention one of her inspirations, which was one of his inspirations. But she's a 22-year-old girl and he's a 50-year-old man. So he was like, wow, You know this guy? You're dialed. And he literally offered her a job on site. He was like, do you want to come to Vegas and interview Alex Hormozi with me tomorrow? But those little things, I think the hardest thing now in the generation is just getting in front of someone. And even when you're me or you, all our friends are doing this type of activity. So it again begins to feel so competitive because the people we're around do it, but we're in the 1%. Like, I feel like all my friends are creators or all my friends are entrepreneurs. So it feels very common to me.
Right.
But if I were to just go walk around SDSU, and that was the thing that I used to have an advantage. Being in school, I used to know that I was like different and taking different steps. But since I've been out of school, it's hard to feel like the rest of the world is not taking those steps anymore.
Yeah, and I think just to like put a couple points there, I think it's easier than ever, you're right, to spread information or get in touch with people. However, a lot of people I think are just shooting from the hip and just like ask or demanding something from them.
Yeah.
And I think like it's funny. This is great. So you just got Influence, right? The book by your parents. There's a law inside that book called the law of reciprocity, and essentially what it is when I give you something, you feel like you owe me something. And it's funny. I just watched my buddy's dog this weekend during Christmas, and now he wants to take me to dinner. And it's like this unwritten code of giving something to somebody. And I think when it comes to like creating free content, like you're just giving, and then you have like you've built up this like reciprocity bank where you could ask for something from somebody. And take me for example, like I'm sharing books and books and books and books. Actually, when I got close with Alex to start, I was sharing his book like crazy, free promotion in front of all these followers. Like, oh my gosh, who is this kid? Oh, and he keeps sharing my book all over the place. That led him to probably be like, I gotta do something. Like this kid, I gotta meet this kid. Like, what is he doing for me? So I think, yes, it's easier than ever to get in touch with people or shoot your shot, but I think a lot of people are not understanding that you need to give a lot before you ask. And Alex Hormozi says, or Gary Vee first said, right? Like jab, 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 hook, like give, and then ask. Alex I think is all about like give more. And it's like, there really isn't this moment for ask until that person asks you to like ask them type of thing. And I think for you who speaks to Gen Z, and I'm on the cusp, so I still speak to them too, knowing that and embodying that is going to help you win. It's like you put the ego aside, be humble, like no one owes you anything, but give for others, be a person of value, and everything you could ever wish will come your way. And I think there's people like to skip that. They like to take a little rocket ship from beginning to getting whatever they want.
It's interesting you bring that up though, because you know what concept was coming up in my head, I'm sure you've read about it because you've read a million books, is the Ben Franklin effect, which you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the concept of the Ben Franklin effect is you actually give someone the opportunity to help you, and then because they help you, they're more likely to continue helping you. Or I think in Ben Franklin's case, he wanted to meet someone, which when you think about Ben Franklin, you're like, couldn't he just meet anyone he wants to meet? But and he knew that person had a book that he didn't have access to, so he asked that person, can I have or can I borrow your book? And from that moment of borrowing, I don't know if it's that the guy thought, oh, like this guy's interested in something that I'm interested in, and then they became best friends, and supposedly they were best friends until they died. But what do you think about the juxtaposition of those two?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest, I'm not super accurate in that either. I don't want to say I am. However, I do think there's some story where he did lend a book from somebody, and it took him like a really long time, I think, to give it back or something along that line. But I think when he did give it back, it showed that he's like responsible to borrow something of someone else's. Or I want to say, and again, I don't want to spew false lies, I think he like flew to London or something to like give the book back or something. But I think nonetheless, I think people like Alex and Elliot or other successful people, like they, and I don't know if Elliot has said this verbatim, but like they want to be around people that they see their younger self in. And I think that's why both of us have had success at our level with people that are larger or have a bigger authority is, you know, we might not be able to give them the experience that maybe they want because they're at a different level or the money or whatever, but just like our community and our interaction with them lights them up beyond belief. And I see this with myself, with people that I see myself, my younger self in too. Like you enjoy being around these people, whether they can give you anything or nothing, because you see that younger self. And that I think is where most people like at 40, 50, 60 are chasing because they're looking for like that type of fulfillment. And perhaps they chased fulfillment in other ways for most of their life, and they realized that wasn't where it was.
I guess the reason I bring it up is because even if you think about like our friend Chris Duncan, who's CEO of Creator Camp, or Alex Benayan, in both their situations, they led with an ask to Elliot Bisnow is the person I'm thinking of specifically. And Elliot Bisnow helped them, but their relationship has improved more even though they asked first. And so it's interesting to juxtapose that because I totally agree that you should give, and don't expect anything in return. It will come, but when you give with the expectation, then it kind of kills the purpose. But I think like in certain circumstances, maybe like with Ben Franklin when he sought out that book, in that situation, it's basically saying like, I respect you for your knowledge that you have, like being the type of person. Or like with Chris, he wanted to make the same company as Elliot, which is basically an entrepreneurial event company, but he wanted to do that for creators. And he's like, hey, I don't know how to do this, but you've done it. And so it's like acknowledging that they have something that only you could learn from them. And I think a lot of these people had someone pour into them. So they are super willing to give or pour into someone, but if they poured into everyone who reached out to them, they would be busy every single day. So they need to find people who remind them of their younger self, I guess. And that's what Alex says too. People want to help people that remind them of their younger selves. I guess that's the gem I'm getting at.
100%. And to like Elliot's story as well, which I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying this, but I'm not going to give away his email address or anything. But he does get inundated with a ton of requests like, oh, I just read you in Alex's book. I want to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And he might have done this to you, but he gives them a hard challenge. He like makes them go through something wild. And I think he told like our buddy Mike Stora, go do the El Camino or de Santiago, whatever. And like most people are gonna be like, no, dude, I'm not doing that. I have to work. I have this or that. I got a girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And you guys ended up doing it, which is so awesome. And now Elliot, obviously, I'm sure respects you guys in a different light. But like that, I think that's the concept in itself that most people our age are not going to do that. Like they're going to take that first shot. Maybe, oh, I just listened to a podcast between Owen and Ozzy. They told me to take my shot. Okay, shoot your shot. But then you get the request back. Oh, go sign up for whatever, a bodybuilding competition because you love fitness. And then it's the line of excuses. And it's the, oh, but with this or that. And I think the people that are willing to go do that or do whatever it takes really without any money. Like for me, I think there's a testament to the basketball experience where I didn't get paid a dime for 4 years. And sure, I got meals paid for and great experience, but like I didn't get a single dime of money, and I wasn't asking for it. And I wasn't interested. I was just so happy to be where I was. But what did I get in return? I mean, I got a 2-year graduate business program paid for, scholarship, coming from a single mom household, like huge. Like to get that, that's so amazing. And obviously I got experience, and it's part of who I am and my brand. Like I could talk about it for the rest of my life. It's something I'm so passionate about still. And I think it's the willingness to put the time in and not get much in return, or take that adventure that someone's telling you to do and not be like, who's this guy to tell me, blah, blah, blah. I think there's just a lot of ego in our world today, and a lot of people that think that they just deserve more than they maybe do deserve, perhaps. But what I will say, too, to just wrap up on that point, is like the more books I read and the more really successful people I meet, they're figuring it out, too. And they're not an expert. And they're willing to go. Like Elliot might be big to us, or Alex. Dude, I've met Elliot's like mentors. Like there's a guy named Peter Tunney who runs essentially Art Basel down in Miami, like Wynwood. He's an amazing artist. He's got these great paintings that people like Michael Rubin, the founder of Fanatics, has bought from. And it's just interesting. Like there's levels to this, right? And people have their own mentors. And I think the moment where you just feel like you are owed something, people don't want to be around you, and you're not magnetic anymore, which I know we talked about off camera too. Yeah. That is important. So,
well, not to like just harp on the same point over and over again, but I just from thinking about the Ben Franklin effect, Chris Duncan's story extrapolates that effect perfectly. So basically what happened is he emailed Elliot. He wanted to have a conversation with them. So he was essentially making an ask, like, hey, I go to USC, I love your company, I would love to talk to you. And then Elliot reciprocated his ask by, he called him, but not only did he call him, he sent him his unreleased book. But that's when Chris took his unreleased book and he read it in an entire day. And then after he read the book in an entire day, he emailed him again and said, can I interview you for my podcast? So he went back to back asks, but the act of reading the book entirely in one day after receiving it, it was like, I think what the Ben Franklin effect actually says, and I'll put something up here so people know, is like, if you give someone the opportunity to help you, they're more likely to help you again.
Sure.
But it was like because of his interest and reading the book so fast, and like I'm sure that's where Elliot saw himself in the kid and wanted to help him. And they've done so much stuff for each other. And Chris has done stuff for him now because he has such big resources to creators that's like invaluable in our era. But that's super interesting. I think, though, we should move on from this and talk about LinkedIn. I will give a little nugget based on the conversation we just went from. The number one way I reach people is I use a Chrome extension that allows me to scrape people's emails off LinkedIn. Someone listening, that's going to be their gym.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can find it.
So good.
I use a Chrome extension to scrape people's emails off LinkedIn. And because a lot of people sign up for LinkedIn with their personal email or whatever, I get a lot of quality email inboxes. And then I pair it with a Chrome extension that tells me how many times they read it. And that's another thing to know too, is because sometimes I'll send someone a cold email, they won't respond, but they'll read it 4 or 5 times and I'll know.
I got the same one.
This person's interested.
Saying the name. I love it.
And so then I'll hit them again and they'll respond. But so that's been my, to be honest, I just leaked my best tool, and only probably a couple people will go utilize that. But LinkedIn, I know you're like an expert on that platform. I'm just going to ask you because I want to know, how do you grow on LinkedIn? I'll be posting once. I used to post twice a week very consistently. Now I've kind of limited down to I post after my podcast. I pair all my platforms together. Mm-hmm. What are just general tips for growing on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is primed for a lot of growth going into 2025. I'm sure this podcast will release in 2025, but recording right now, we're just after Christmas in 2024. I think it's primed for growth because it has the same amount of users as most of these other platforms have, 1 billion plus, but the people actually using it it's a very low percentage. When I say using it, people that are actually posting. So on Instagram, every mom is a creator. And in the eyes of Instagram, posting the Diet Coke they just drank or their cat or dog or whatever, they're a creator. their stuff's probably not going viral or getting any traction, but like they still are this creator. For those that are creating on LinkedIn, it's a low percentage, and just actually being someone who does create actually puts you in the top 1%, which is pretty powerful. And I think there's also this there's this evolution of like a Twitter, LinkedIn kind of fusion where like, yes, it's still a professional network, but it's becoming more conversational and vulnerable, and people are sharing their losses. It's not just like, oh, I got this job promotion, or I mean, I still see people posting like that, which is funny. Like some of my friends from college, it's just I know they don't talk that way. It's just a very formal post, like, oh, I just got this senior management.
I'm excited to announce.
Yeah, it's like, no, you're not. You're pissed and you want more PTO.
Yeah.
Like, but tell the truth. But if you're using LinkedIn to share your message, I think it could catch a lot of wind pretty quickly. I also think that you treat it like most other platforms where you want to build kind of a community. So I believe we all rise together, and high tides lift all ships. So to just be kind of talking to the void or the abyss, you're not probably going to get the results you want. So if you could find like 5 or 10 other people that are ideally in your niche or adjacent niches to help you kind of lift each other up, engage with their posts, like and comment, and vice versa, you're going to get a lot more success off the bat. But to your point, like, I think LinkedIn, you need to build for LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is you can't just write a blog post and then put the link on LinkedIn and just hope it's going to go viral. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but like, say you put out a YouTube video and you're like, oh, I just put out a YouTube video. Here's the link. Go check it out. You want to essentially write a LinkedIn post as if no one's watched the YouTube video. And it's, hey, 5 tips for XYZ. By the way, if you want to learn more, if you want more in depth, here's the YouTube video. So I think that's a big nugget right there that might go over some people's head. But a lot of people I work with, they see social media in general as, oh, I got to be everywhere. Like everyone's on every platform. I'm going to create for Instagram because that's my favorite, and then I'm just going to spray the link all over the place.
Yeah.
And okay, that's a decent strategy. Like it's one way to get some reach, but to get the results that you're probably seeking, which is more followers or more impressions on your actual content, you should be creating for LinkedIn in particular. And it's really not too far from some corners of Twitter if you're on there, or X. Not long-winded posts or long-form posts, but like, make a good point, have a good hook, rope people in, have the meat of the post, and then a call to action to make that next step. So that, I think, hopefully some tips there, but there's always more. But
maybe I can share I have some gripes with LinkedIn, I'll say. So
yeah, that's fine. So do my clients.
Look, one of the gripes I have is, so our friend Chris, we've talked about him a couple times in this episode, CEO of Creator Camp, very successful. He gave me some tips on LinkedIn that were very transmutable or very applicable, and they worked. Like, I've tested them hundreds of times. And I think the tips he told me were tag more people. And it's true, when I tag more people, I get more engagement, just like automatic. Sometimes I'll just be tagging words that I have in the writing that I don't know what they're tagging. And then he gave me a few tips. I can't remember all, but it was tag more people, include links and images, like expand your posts so they're larger in the feed. But the one that he surprised me with was, he's like, if you really want big bang, just say, I'm excited to announce. I started going to my feed and I realized that it's a very common phrase on LinkedIn because people post job promotions.
Right.
And the two things I see are getting a job promotions, which is kind of one category, and then graduating college for me.
Yeah.
And these posts bang, but there's no value in them, which maybe shows a type of consumers that are on there versus me. But like, I'll have friends who are graduating college, they don't ever post on LinkedIn. They'll just be like, I'm excited to announce I've graduated SDSU. And we'll get like 300 likes. And I'll like write a freaking essay that I spend 2 hours revising. We'll do whatever, 20 impressions. And that's interesting because I don't quite just like link spray, but I do, my goal, the way I have it set up is I post on LinkedIn. And I even have it in my like to-do list app, so that automatically the day I post a podcast, my to-do list tells me the next day write a LinkedIn post. And I don't just pray and spray and pray. Like I write a whole post that's like value driven that aligns with the episode, and then I link it. It's like I've had some do all right or well, but just not like significant growth. And I wonder, like, given everything we've just discussed, I wonder if it's because a lot of the audience who has LinkedIn are just people who want to elevate in their job, or some college class made them get it. So the things they're liking are the people who are saying, I'm excited to announce. But then there's people like you who have broken through that like standard LinkedIn page who are able to talk about your authoring business or your LinkedIn growth business, and their LinkedIns feel so powerful. And I'm trying to be like them, but I feel like I'm stuck in the like regular group of LinkedIn.
Yeah, all good points. And I think the I'm excited to announce is really funny and interesting, because that just shows where like those are hot SEO keywords.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it goes nuts on the platform. So I think there's a couple things to note. I think one, LinkedIn is still a job promotion website. Like I think it's growing, it's evolving. I think this next year and beyond, it's gonna turn into more of a how I post and how like kind of Twitter is. And I, Gary Vee's been kind of swearing by this too. So for that, what that's worth, I think there's something coming. Secondly, I think putting a link in the actual post could kill it. I think putting the link in the comments is the best play. Like any platform,
that's
right?
Smart.
They don't want you going off platform. Like LinkedIn they thrive off dwell time. And we can go on that on a little bit of a tangent, but like there's, just like that's why carousels might do well on Instagram, because you have to like swipe over and over again. Like you're increasing the dwell time on that one piece of content. So that's telling the algorithm, oh, this person likes this person's stuff. Whether it's sitting on the table or whatever and it's sitting there, or they're actually like viewing it, it's showing that there's an increase in dwell time, so it's going to show you that post more often. But I think nonetheless, none of these platforms want you going elsewhere. So if you put a YouTube link in your main post, it's going to be like, oh, YouTube.
Well, that's a valuable gem.
Yeah. So I think beyond that, you could put it in the comments, and you can, there's some nuance here, like maybe waiting 30 minutes after posting and putting the link in the comments could be a play. I've heard people even say like you can then put it in the actual body, the body of the post, but you wait like an hour. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, probably more than most people, but I'm not even willing to like do that. Like I don't have a timer on my phone. It's like, 30 minutes later, blah, blah, blah. Like no, once it's live, it's live. And I'm pretty detached when it comes to the impressions and all that. I think everyone really should be, because if you get into the details of that, you're just you're gonna become an unhappy person. I think lean on obviously the content and the distribution network, like having friends or colleagues around you to kind of lift you up could be helpful. The other thing I'll quickly say too is LinkedIn is loving short form content, video content now. So actually on the website, on the desktop version, it used to be like, it says like whatever, write something today, like any of the news feeds do. And then it used to have like photo, article, whatever, 3 buttons underneath. Now it's in video is number 1 and photo is number 2 and whatever is third. And they've even changed on the mobile screen, the middle button is the video button. So it's just crazy how all these platforms build off each other. But I think that's a great way for you, anybody listening, or you in particular, can build on TikTok or Instagram and rip the same content and go put it on LinkedIn and reap the benefits too. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, everything you just said there was extremely valuable, because I started editing podcast trailers, but I put them, like Diary of a CEO, I put them in the beginning of the episode. So I was just thinking, link the episode, people watch, they can watch further. But now it's like I could make the executive decision to just post the trailer on the platform and tell people, if you want to go look it up, or put it in the comments.
I'll say this real quickly, because I think like this is really important. I think most, like I had to be told this too. I really think all these platforms are their own. And I think and I know this after having 128,000 Instagram followers, moving those people to Twitter or something else, you might be like, oh, that's no problem. You can grow a 10,000 person subscriber list on whatever. It's hard. People don't want to migrate. They are on that platform for one good reason, and I think you really have to build on each of these platforms as their own, and you got to adapt to how these platforms like to be presented. But above all that, like whether you're building on LinkedIn or YouTube, email is super important. And I've been told that, and it took me a long time to like realize that. But we were talking about James Clear too, the author of Atomic Habits. Like he has been able to have the success that he's had because of his email list. So I think you can use the email list to distribute and be like, I have a YouTube video, I have a LinkedIn, etc. But if you're building on LinkedIn or you're building on Instagram, don't treat them as like a combined almost distribution channel, but in a sense, like learn to kind of build on each of them as they should be built. And I think like you can also say like Gary Vee, yes, he has a massive team behind him, but I don't even know if he's posting on LinkedIn, honestly, as often as I would think. Like he's kind of core on 2 or 3 platforms.
Yeah.
Like no one's really kind of everywhere at a really high level. So maybe LinkedIn's not for you, or like you speaking to you or listeners, like just kind of finding what's for you is important too.
Well, you're one of a number of very wise people who have told me that if you just copy and paste content onto platforms, you're missing it out. Or you're missing out because what you're saying and what they're saying is that different audiences like different platforms, and every person probably has like 2 to 3 they like. But even like someone like me, I like Instagram, I love YouTube, and I like X. But when I go on one platform, I stay on that platform. And that's me as someone who's a lot more willing to transition platforms because I'm always looking for podcast guests. So I'm a lot more willing to be on Twitter or LinkedIn and go somewhere else so I can check someone out and then email them for a podcast. But even me, when I'm on a platform, I'm on a platform. And that's to piggyback off that, when I do go from a platform to someone's podcast or their video or their movie or their book or whatever they're trying to plug me, usually, and if it's someone that I'm seeing for the first time, it's not someone I know like Gary Vee, for example. I've seen him a million places.
Right. Usually
they have to be in the top echelon of that platform for me then to consider going and looking at something else to promote, or the post has to. So like if I see a rando on LinkedIn, but he just got 100,000 likes on a post and the post is about a book or YouTube channel, unfortunately, I mean, I'm the soul wealth guy. I always try to be like, get rid of likes, get rid of metrics, but those metrics validate that his book or his YouTube video or whatever he's recommending is worth clicking on.
Right.
However, I mean, I don't know for sure because this is a made up example, but the person who often has that viral post, I doubt they made that viral post as like, I'm going to promote this book. It's probably like, I'm making great content for LinkedIn and here I can slip it in. And that's something, so many wise people keep telling me over and over and over again. To master social media, you have to create for each platform, and defining what that audience is for you on each platform is something I definitely need to do better. But while I think about that, and you saying email is king, and again, all the other wise people have told me email is king, I wonder if the reason email is king is because it's not a platform, like it's literally the email app, and you don't doom scroll like this.
Right.
So it's the best platform to plug anything because I don't even like calling it a platform because it's not like the same as Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, but it's the best phone positioning that you're willing to leave. Like we always just open our email and then just leave our email. Like we don't just sit there and like, let me just keep doom scrolling emails, you know?
Yeah. I think the other thing is like to gain admission into someone's email is a big deal. Like you're not just, you're not just handing out your phone number or your email to random Joe Schmoes. Like to follow me on Instagram or you, it's a click, right?
Yeah.
And you follow them. To join your email list, like I have to put my email in my name and like whatever, do something else perhaps. Like there's more friction to getting that admission, which I think gives it that authority.
There's more physical friction and mental friction because email marketing's been so big in our generation. It's like, I know that if I'm giving someone my email, it's like I'm going to get something's coming in my inbox. So if I'm doing that and I'm not forced to be doing it for a subscription or a service, that is a really big like mental, I value your information. Like when I sign up for a newsletter, I really value because I don't want to be on another email list.
Right. And the other reason why, email is so important too is because it's like an owned audience. Like on social, and I have all these followers on Instagram, but like hope it doesn't happen, knock on wood, but like tomorrow the page could be gone. And I have no control over that. So it's a rented audience. So yeah, I have all these followers and I can talk to them, but tomorrow it could be gone and I don't have any of those people in my Rolodex or in my phone or whatever. Email, it's a known audience. So like you have these people's email addresses, you can use that data to run ads, which is super powerful. You can find other people that look like them and all that good stuff like these marketers do. Or if your email gets shut down, like you can scrape your database, or you should be scraping your database hopefully on a regular basis to have all these names in your CSV file or whatever, and then you can find them again. So that's another big point of why like people say, and I say this all the time, like use social media to attract email subscribers. Like the only reason why you're on social should be to funnel them down to be an email sub. But I want to make one other quick point too, just to your point, like, and this is good for you in particular, like maybe your purpose on LinkedIn is not so much to be a world big creator from an impressions or follower standpoint. Like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a distribution channel for you where you can share your content, but it's actually the way you get in touch with people. And it's the way you, like, that's your purpose for it. So maybe that's a new way to think about social media. Like maybe as a creator, Instagram is your place to be the guy, but Twitter, for whatever reason, is your way to source your guests. So maybe just a new
that's already been a true statement for me. And even, I think they're changing the whole top voice badge on LinkedIn, which I think, even though I personally don't like it, it's a smart decision because the badge is complete virtue signaling. You just you answer collaborative articles. I'm someone who I think knows a lot about relationships because I do study it a little bit, but you could easily repeat what I did, which is just answer a bunch of collaborative articles. And I actually stopped answering them because it was a waste of my time, and I just copy and pasted ChatGPT.
Right.
And so with basic AI understanding, you can get a top voice, and then I would put serious effort into my own post because I think of all my posts as a reflection of me. And while they don't I don't think I've brought any new audience from LinkedIn. When I reach out to people and they go look at my LinkedIn, they see, okay, this person posts, they have good posts, they have the top voice. It definitely is something that qualifies me as an authority figure. And that also just comes with the platform. That's 100%. Something I really like about LinkedIn is that people just, if you're active on LinkedIn, you're just seen as more of an authority figure than, let's say, someone active on Twitter or Instagram. I
tell all my LinkedIn clients this too. I truly believe this, like inbound leads are a cherry on the top. Like if you put out a good piece of content and people come to you, awesome, we create really great content. But really what we're doing is we are putting in an offensive strategy, because who likes to sit down and do nothing and just wait for life to happen to you? Like go out there and take action. So when you're sending those DMs, to your point, what are they going to do right after they see your name? They're going to go check out who the heck Aussie is, and they're going to come to your profile. The work we did with the content and the optimization of your profile is that trust builder after they make that jump. So that's how I think you should think about honestly all social. Like I love getting inbound DMs, whether it's business or friends. It's like awesome. It's 4 years of hard work put together and the goodwill is coming my way. But if you looked at my business statistics and who was a cold outreach, who was from a paid ad, or who was a referral, like you're going to see that most of our business came from us not sitting on our butt and actually going out and finding business. And I think a lot of creators or early business owners, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to be on social because that's what the world is doing and that's where everyone is. And why are inbound leads not flooding to me? It's like, well, I think it's actually a hoax, or it's not a hoax in a sense that it's totally false, but if you were to look at everyone's like P&Ls or their breakdown of where the traffic is coming from new business, I guarantee you that more times than not, the percentage of inbound leads is very small, when most of it's coming from their active outreach. And that could be paid ads too, because you're paying for those eyeballs. Yeah,
that's very true. I don't know if you can share this on here, but you have some LinkedIn templates that are just like recycled templates of writing where you fill in your own information for posts that have already worked on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can go out and plug that, or you can share it, whatever that is.
No, I'll happily share the link with you. But I have 30 days of content templates that, as Ozzy said, like they've worked for many other people. And it's not so much an actual post where you have to dissect what the heck I'm saying, but it's more so the framework and the structure so you can plug in your own information and actually have a winning chance to make that post go viral. So we'll definitely give you the link and people can
I'll definitely be using them. But it's those systems frustrate me because as someone who takes the time to freaking write your own thought and you're like, but they just work and they actually make your life easier. They frustrate me because I spend a bunch of time doing it my way, but then when you drop that ego and you realize, okay, there's proven methods that work, it's not copy and paste. You have to insert your value that you've come up with into a framework that works. But these things are repeated and they're proven, and he's really good at it. So if you want to master LinkedIn or grow there, definitely get that resource. It'll be linked below. We don't have that much time, but I guess we should probably talk about what it's like to work with so many authors. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you do is you help authors finish their books, or what do you do?
No, so we're on the marketing front. So you write your book and make it pretty and release it or get it ready for release. You now need eyeballs, right, to see your book. So for the majority of the business, it's been like this book promotion service. So we have all these followers, all these readers that are following the brand. You'll work with us and we'll get your book in front of these readers because they're looking for their next book recommendation. So it's not just like Joe Schmoes or random eyeballs on like Facebook ads. It's literal like voracious readers, people that love to read their next book. So that's been a majority of the business. Now, at the time of recording this and where we are in our journey right now in business, that service is actually like almost going to be sunset. Like that's something I'm pushing a little bit away from, and we're focusing more of our energy on the personal brand of either an author, speaker, truly a business owner, someone that has something to sell, because we want to have there be a clear path to a financial ROI. It's to build and uplift these business owners who have a great message to share. And we're doing it right now, currently, like specifically on LinkedIn, building their brands there. My tagline right now is, we're building revenue producing personal brands for business owners on LinkedIn. So that's where most of our energy is going to be funneled towards for 2025. But yeah, over the past 4 or 5 years of being in business, it's been a lot of that, but it's been very specific with authors and how to show people who they are, how to communicate your messaging, because that's been a big piece too. You don't just have another self-help book. Like, why is this book so important and why do people need to read it? I've been able to help authors figure all that out.
And so you told me off camera that you want to kind of shift your general book knowledge page to kind of a personal brand. I don't know, are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Why is that? I mean, you explained it to me and I agree with you, but for them, context, it's valuable.
So, right, Unleash the Knowledge is the brand you could find. I mean, maybe you could find it right now.
Put it here and it's in the link.
And that's been, it started in basketball, sharing books I was reading. Books that Coach Hurley was reading and I was reading. And there was really there was no business intention behind it whatsoever. And I say that wholeheartedly. The sole reason of why I created it was, one, to just share the books I was reading, and two, was to build a community of other people that saw the same way as or saw life the way I did. You kind of alluded to this too, but like, I have a lot of great friends and I love them, but they're classic 9-to-5ers for the rest of their life. And that's fine, and you could do that, and everyone, we need those people in the world. But for as long as I can remember, I've always been the person who's had the big idea or has been told to quiet down, or your head's too big. So I made this page with that sole intention. I need to find other people that were like me. And I figured out that through books, people that like to read business and self-help books are more or less those types of people. They want to better their life, and they don't want to just wake up at 50 and be like, what the heck was I just doing for the past 50 years? So that was the intention. And that started on September 14th, 2019. I was finishing my last season in basketball, finishing my last semester in college, graduate school. But going into this new season, going to 2025, I practice this and I feel like I need to preach it more, but this whole idea of founder-led sales, founder-led businesses, where, and I don't know about you, you can attest to this, but I gravitate towards businesses pretty much off of the founder's story or who the founder is. And I will binge their podcasts or their YouTube videos and I will get to know them. And that's going to get me more interested in what they sell or what they do. So I have this intention to essentially just scrape the Unleash the Knowledge name off the Instagram page and put the spotlight kind of on me and who I am. I mean, at the end of the day, what the page represents is me. It's not, doesn't say Owen right now, but it's this kid who loves to read and wants to do great things and share good messages. So I'm inching towards making that transition. And really part of why I'm making the transition too is I've come to realize I like to start a lot of things and do it at like a 30-40% level of effectiveness or productivity. And I'm trying to simplify. I'm trying to like consolidate all the stuff I'm doing. So you got the book stuff, you got the LinkedIn personal brand, like why not make it all one thing? So that's...
they're all things you've built. I mean, creator products are something I've talked about a lot on the podcast and I think about a lot, but the easiest example for me is like Mr. Beast has his own chocolate brand. If I go into Walmart and let's say I wanted to buy chocolate, which is not really my thing, but neither is Walmart really my thing, but chocolate at Walmart, and they obviously don't taste exactly the same, but let's say there's 5 brands that taste exactly the same.
Right.
I don't know who runs Hershey's. I don't know who runs C's. I don't know who runs whatever, but I know that Mr. Beast, and I like his YouTube videos. So if they were the same price, same quality, I'm always just going to pick the person I know. Mm-hmm. And that's because I like them, but it also doubles down as an accountability thing because let's say like a Feastable bar had poison in it and it like hurt some kid. The parents can come out online and hold him accountable for it. Whereas like you can do the same thing with Hershey's, but it's just kind of going to go into the abyss unless it's bad enough because there's not a name attached to it. And we're already seeing this with bigger things like Elon purchasing X. And it's like whenever something bad happens on X, people are like, Elon, like they're holding him accountable immediately. And so creator products are really interesting. There's also the concept of like the billion-dollar industries building on each other. So I'm sure you've heard this, but you had the computers. The computers and the phones and the devices were the first billion-dollar industry, and then you have the websites, the Google, the Firefox, and then you have the apps that are built on the websites, which are like the Instagram, the YouTube, and now they're saying the next billion-dollar industry is the creators, which there probably is already a couple. Like I'm sure Mr. Beast is worth more than $1 billion, and so it's like you kind of gotta go there. I mean, that's like, it's just inefficient to do it the other way. And then I don't know if you would say it's the creators or it would be the next thing would be the products from the creators, but those two kind of as a whole is how I see it too. And it's a very interesting thing to think about, like with you saying, oh, change the unleash the knowledge to your personal brand, whether you name that after yourself or your first book or whatever. But, like with me, I named my podcast Respectfully Inspired. And part of the reason I named it that is because as a Christian, as like a God person, I didn't want like my podcast to be named after me. It felt like kind of an ego thing. Like, not that I never think badly like on Joe Rogan Experience or like I'm never like those guys have an ego, but I was just like less to have on my name. But I find myself utilizing I post my clips on Respectfully Inspired, but I find myself feeling like I need to grow Aussie films, feeling like that is the channel for everything. And it's a really interesting juxtaposition because you were coming into an era where you, as the founder, validate all your creations, and that's just undeniable. But for me specifically, and you, like as a Christian and just like trying to stay humble, it's kind of a weird position to be in. It
is. And, I think at the end of the day, we're called to serve. And that's what I feel drawn towards. And it's not so much, I think obviously don't come off as, hey, look at me, but it's to have my name on the account. I don't think that's so much of a stamp of, I'm the guy. Yeah. But for my own purpose, just speaking from first person, like I have a desire to write books and to go on stage, potentially to speak. You're not going to hire Unleash the Knowledge to do that, or you're not going to read a book under Unleash the Knowledge. Like you're going to read it from Owen Sammarone because that's a human, that's a guy. So that's the play for me. Yeah. It's also not to say that the business name's going to die. It's still my LLC. It's still the name of the agency, so you'll still see it. But I think from a social perspective, I'm leaning more into who I am. So for you on like the podcast, like that's still great. Like I mean, I have a podcast too for authors called The Daily Author.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's titled that because it's
For
about authors, and I want that to be clear. And it's not daily, but it's 3 times a week. So it's pretty close to being daily. So you want branding, again, that's a whole nother conversation, but like the name of a brand goes so far. You know, you want to be able to communicate what you do. So, yeah, I mean, I also think it's probably a way harder road to name it, you know, the Owen Sammarone Show. Like, because it's like, who's Owen Sammarone? And usually the people who do make podcasts like that, as you mentioned too about Joe Rogan and his Fear Factor experience, he's already established. He's already solidified. Like, I don't know really, you know, I'm sure there are people, but I don't know anyone that really has named their show after their name as that was like their starting thing to tell the world. And you know, maybe I'm sure there's some.
Maybe Chris Williams, but that's like the only.
No, his is Modern Wisdom.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He's Modern. That's so weird because I don't even think of it as Modern Wisdom.
Right, exactly.
I think of it
think of him.
as him. Yeah, I mean, you make a bunch of really great points. I also would like to speak on stages too and build my name, but yeah, it's just it's a very interesting thing.
And one other thing I'll share with you too, because I've gone through this. Like, again, I think it's a time and place type of thing. And a lot of people, obviously I've worked with so many authors and they're like, when are you writing your book? When are you writing your book? And it's like, I'm not ready yet. Like, I'm in this period where maybe there's imposter syndrome that I feel like I don't have enough to say. That was definitely the fact maybe 5-7 years ago. But I think I was just not in that mindset to put the spotlight on me in that sense. And now I've kind of come to realize in this last like 6 months making this decision around the Instagram page that like I'm growing into this. And I'm gonna be 30 in the next 2 years. So like, and that's not to say you can't be 18 and be like, I'm the guy, but I think you know when you're ready for that, and only you can make that decision. And a lot of people might press that upon you. I mean, I know a guy who runs like the top New York City PR firm for business authors who doesn't have a book, and he's worked with Tim Ferriss and and so many of these names I could probably rattle off on my bookshelf. He's worked with and he's represented, but this guy doesn't even have a book. And I've asked him that question too, like, why don't you have a book? It's funny, even coming from me, like I've asked that, and his answer was, I'm too busy promoting other people's books to write his own. But I mean, I think everyone should have a book. I think everyone should write a book, even if it's for your grandchildren or whomever. I mean, there's a book here, I can't pull it off right now, but my family actually has a book about their restaurant in Greenwich Village, New York. And I forgot about that actually when I launched the book page. And it's just amazing how there's that connection. But my grandfather's now passed, but there's pictures of him in the book. And it's like, just so amazing, right? To pass that, and I want to give that to my kids and such. So anyway, the message of part of that point is simply just, you'll know when it's your time to do something like that, and no one else can tell you that. You know, run your own show. Yeah,
that's good. That's good stuff. I actually, for Christmas, I got my parents I've never tried it, so I don't know what the quality of it's going to be, but the books where they're like blank prompt books, and it basically says my mom's story and my dad's story. So it's something I can go through with them, write down their story, and then pass it down. So I think that's going to be really fun. But
for sure.
Owen, thank you so much for all this information, dude. You're full of knowledge. I'm so excited to release this. It was an incredible episode, and just let the viewers know where they can find you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thanks, Ozzy. I mean, for coming out to Nashville and filming this in person. I love that you only do it in person, because I know we've talked about this, and I do mine on Zoom, and I'm like, dude, let's just do Zoom. And you're like, no, I only do in person. I think that's so important, because it gets you and obviously have this nice conversation. But for me, I mean, I like to say this like jokingly, but also truthful. Like, it shouldn't be hard to find me on the internet. Just Google my name, Owen Sammarone, and the Yukon stuff might pop up, or the social channels. And I say that because based on the Unleash the Knowledge verbiage might be evolving. You know, yes, you can go to Unleash the Knowledge. It's all over social, but you might find that that's Owen Sammarone in the next months.
It's all linked below too, so whatever it is, it's below here.
But yeah, nonetheless, should be able to find me pretty easily. I'm on a lot of the socials.
All right, sounds good, bro. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, dude. Thank you.
That was good.
That was awesome. I appreciate it, man.